Hello everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV. It is the deep dive and we are here to dive into the man that is Martín Zubimendi, Liverpool's latest transfer target. Obviously it's been very exciting. The news sort of broke a couple of days ago. We got in as early as we could to do this show. There has been loads of great content I've seen on Twitter and on YouTube and stuff like that. Shout out James Walcott's video. I thought that was absolutely brilliant, breaking down him in a ball playing and a defensive sort of perspective. As always, he's absolutely fantastic. So, what do you know about Martín Zubimendi to start us off then, Josh?
I feel like I know everything about him now, to be honest.
The ins and outs of cat's arsehole?
Kind of, I mean, I wouldn't put it that way, like, but yeah, I've done my own work and I've got to a point now unknowingly where I do want Liverpool to get him.
Yeah.
But we're at that position at the minute where it feels a bit up in the air, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does a little bit, mate.
But hopefully Liverpool get him across the line. I mean, the main reason he seems to be in doubt is just because he seems really loyal to his current club and he's a boyhood fan of the club and all that stuff. So it's kind of like when I was trying to get Steven Gerrard really in it. So I have admired it, really. I think it's a good quality to have with a players like that as opposed to forcing himself out the door and all that stuff. But yeah, Josh, he's a good player.
I was going to save this for later on in the show, but since you brought it up, I feel bad for saying this. I'm going to go straight off the bat, right? Because as a player, I want Martín Zubimendi at Liverpool. But it does get the alarm bells ringing for me, whether he wants to come to Liverpool or not. Because, you know, this now, to me, and again, just from the outside looking in, Josh, it looks like a guy who could quite easily become unsettled at Liverpool. Because he doesn't have the mountains close by and fucking all this type of stuff, whatever that PowerPoint. No, yeah, well, exactly. They've got Vivi, I think it is, on Walton Road, which they could have a little pop at, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it's more Italian anyway. Regardless, like it does make me feel bad about it in a way, you know, because seriously, how many players come over, you know, and don't settle into the city, whether that be Liverpool or at any Premier League club. And I'm not saying it exclusively means that he can't settle and can't play well, but being happy in your personal life is important, I think, for footballers to play well as well.
I agree with that part, yeah, but I actually don't think, I'm not bothered at all that he's having doubts or whatever. I think it's perfectly normal. I think if it was me, for example, I would have doubts, and that's nothing on me being unwilling to leave the house or me not wanting to be ambitious or anything like that. That's just to do with me being really set in Liverpool. I just love Liverpool, you know what I mean? I'm a Scouse lad and I know the city really well and everyone that I know is here and grew up here and all that stuff. So I think if he's just a boyhood fan of the club, loves it to death, has had no intentions of moving before this move materialised a couple of days ago, it would be a shock to the system. So I have no problems with him kind of taking his time and weighing it up, because we view it as just an objective football move, but you actually think about it, like, it's a huge lifestyle change. I don't know if he's got kids or not, but that, you know, taking your kids out of school and all that. I don't know if you've got a girlfriend over there or a wife or whatever, she's going up sticks and all that stuff. And as I said, if it's been a surprise to him compared to the average footballer who we think is a bit more open to a move, if he's been looking at this summer thinking, yeah, I'm staying, sound, and then this has come out of nowhere, I just think it's normal. I don't think it's any slant on the player's character or his ambition or his hunger to win or anything like that. I just view it as like understandable, and as I said, I think you can look at it in a positive light, because he seems to be a really loyal, grounded player.
Well, that's the thing. In my own head, I counter my fears with the fact that if he takes his time and decides that Liverpool is the right move, then that does allay my fears slightly, because he's actually properly thought about it. Yeah. He's not just rushed in and gone, yeah, I'm going to go there, and then had those doubts afterwards. If he's thought about it and if he's decided, you know what, I want to do this, then that does counterbalance my fears. But again, it is something where I think everybody's been so objectively, yes, we need Martín Zubimendi. I don't think there's been enough conversation around, well, actually, is he going to settle into the city? Yeah. And I think that's what he's doing, and that's a good thing.
I actually think, though, if he's going to move to anywhere in England, I think Liverpool is a good club for him, based on just everything we're hearing about him as a person and that, and how committed he is to Sociedad and all that stuff. He seems to be, you know, family values and all that, family club, Basque country and all that stuff. So I think the equivalent of that is probably Liverpool in the Premier League, a proper family club where I actually don't think he'd be unsettled here because of that. I think, you know, there's a lot of South American players around him and all that stuff, and I know he's not South American, he's Spanish, but I think he'd feel at home on Merseyside, basically, is what I'm getting at.
Okay, well, we'll move on then. Obviously, a little bit about him. Obviously, we know that he's an incredibly technically gifted footballer. We'll talk about that later on. He comes from a side in Real Sociedad who have been blessed with some, you know, incredible players. Xabi Alonso, David Silva, Canales, to name but a few. We know Alonso is one of his absolute heroes who followed that path from Sociedad to Liverpool. Xabi Alonso himself said when he was coaching him for the Real Sociedad B side, Martin has the mark of Zubietta, which is the Sociedad Academy. He's a player all coaches would want. He's generous. He always thinks about his teammates more than himself. He has that ability to generate play, to make those around him better, always offering solutions to improve the move. He understands what the next step is before the ball gets to him. He has that ability to organise the axis. I loved working with him. That from one of the, you know, the Bundesliga winning manager right now, one of the greatest players to grace a football pitch at Anfield is high praise. Yeah,
and I think that is the ultimate praise for a six. That is absolute number six praise. That because it's a number six typically is not flashy, is not selfish in any way, very team orientated. You drift under the radar and you just keep things ticking over and stuff. You don't win the Ballon d'Or and all that stuff. And that praise that Xabi's given is all of those things. It's that kind of like, you know, we're better when he's on the pitch, but you won't really notice him when he is on the pitch because he just keeps things ticking over and does the simple stuff really, really well. So it is really good praise, and it's really good praise that suggests he's suited to fill in the current void at Liverpool as well, based on what we need.
And what is that current void then, as you see it, that we need?
So obviously we've needed a kind of sixth player since we lost Fabinho. I know we got Endo in, but seems to be on the move. He's over 30, and I don't think he suits the current style of play for Liverpool. So we've spoke the past couple of weeks about Arne Slot and what he's kind of installing at Liverpool, and it is very possession based. It's very building through the thirds with the ball on the floor. It's 5-yard passes. It's inviting pressure with the confidence that you're able to play through it. So looking at that, I think we've been kind of learning on the fly with a few players, watching the likes of Jones do it, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, Endo, Besetic at times. They've all had a go at doing it. They're all alright at doing it. I think Jones probably the best, but even still he's given the ball away a fair few times. I think McAllister will be okay at doing it, but we haven't seen it yet. I think Liverpool have wanted to add in a six who is not necessarily a real unit, but someone who will aid that.
The first phase of build-up.
Yeah, someone who will offer solutions in the first phase and get you out of your own defensive third and moving up the pitch more often. Someone who's just a bit more of a master at that. The player I keep using as an example is Jorginho. When Jorginho arrives on the scene and he gets linked with, you know, Chelsea and Liverpool and all that and Arsenal, he's very, very lightweight. He's very slender, not particularly tall, not particularly quick at anything. He's just a master at this part of the game. And Liverpool now are doing this part of the game. Lots of lads learning how to do it under the manager. Getting in someone like Zubimendi will just allow you to master it really quickly and speed up the process almost. And considering he's 25, there's an element of like plug and play in there where he comes in, you just put him in the team, and on the back of doing that, you just very quickly move up a level and potentially, you know, I don't know if I'm aiming too high, but potentially aim for the title really if you get in someone like that.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I think obviously Barcelona were linked with him a couple of years ago and they wanted him to be the heir apparent to Sergio Busquets.
Apparently they still do.
Yeah.
But they can't afford him. That's the problem.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
For us, because we can afford him. Obviously it looks like Liverpool are going to try and hit the release clause and stuff like that. But again, if Barcelona are looking at him for the heir apparent to Sergio Busquets, that's that's high praise as well, isn't it? Because one of the greatest defensive-minded midfielders of all time and stuff like that. So I think what I find really interesting about his game, and maybe we'll use the tactics board a little bit here, is I love players, and I've always loved players, and I think it's been talked about a lot with Zubimendi. La Posa is the sort of phrase that everybody uses, but nobody really talked about it until there's potential Zubimendi signing. I think any player who stops on a football field is a clever player, because I think it's a brave move, to be honest with you. But when, let's say you're taking the ball here, and we've not got any opposition players on at the moment, but people are moving all around. So you got your left back maybe moving up, your right back maybe moving up, and this guy trying to find space, maybe hugging the touchline, whatever, ahead of you, these type of things. When you stop, whether that be under pressure or not, the entire picture changes all of the time. You know, you might see a run from there and stuff like that. Yeah. I love players who can do that and just stop and survey and understand what's happening, be that through defenders positioning or whatever. It's an underrated skill in football, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely is. I think it's a really good point. I seen a tweet, might have been yesterday, someone tweeted me saying something along the lines of like, have you got the numbers for how many touches a player typically takes before he releases the ball? And he said, because I think any DM should be releasing the ball within 3 touches. Now, I see why he would think that, and I see why most people think that the DM, the 6, should be kind of like, you know...
decisive and quick.
Yeah, getting the ball, go. Getting the ball, release, like that. But sometimes, I think the 6 is responsible for dictating tempo more than any other player, really. Along with the centre-halves, probably nowadays. So sometimes, mate, the optimal decision, the best decision, isn't always release the ball quick. Sometimes it is just, listen, stop, patience. Again, we're going back to what Arne Slot's been pushing in pre-season. Stopping on the ball, patience, get your head up, see where everyone is. Again, enticing that pressure from the opposition. And then when they come towards you and they vacate that space, you find a way to get into that space. So Zubimendi, I've watched a lot of footage of him over the past week. He does a lot of that, and it is a typically Spanish thing. I think you get it from Spanish midfielders a lot of the time. And I don't think it's a surprise that throughout Klopp's tenure, we don't sign a single Spanish player. Because he's just never been about that. He's been about the opposite. It's about speeding up the game. It's about full throttle stuff, end-to-end basketball, pinball. Liverpool are moving towards a bit of a different game now, and adding a Spanish player as the first sign, I think would epitomise that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you're sort of alluding to there is quite often, you know, you might receive the ball from the centre half there into Zubimendi, and the way that the game is, there's always going to be one man spare. Quite often at times it might be one of the full-backs. If you're releasing the ball within sort of 1 to 2, 3 touches, you're putting it there. Everybody on the pitch knows he's the free man. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right pass just because he's the free man. If you take a moment, maybe use someone's body weight and their velocity, because velocity is speed plus direction, isn't it? If you use their velocity to find out where you go, you can turn back. Maybe something else has opened up on the other side of the pitch. And from watching him over the last week myself as well, that's one of the things that I've been really impressed with. And it's actually interesting for me, and I don't know whether you agree on this, but in fact, I'll ask the question before I say who I think it is. Who do you think is the most similar player who's been tried in that role as Zubimendi right now?
Who's already been tried in it in pre-season? It's
a tough question.
I think Bajcetic has looked the most natural doing it. But he hasn't started any games, and he came on when everyone's been tired a little bit. I think out of all the players I've seen, I don't know, there's different. I think the way in which Gravenberg's received the ball has been nice. But I think he's maybe still a bit vertical to be that 6 and that guy will chill on the ball. Jones's retention, we know, is really, really good. But he's given the ball away a few times, and I'm not sure he's, like, again, a natural 6. I don't think he is. So there's different, like, traits almost attached to each Liverpool player that it's almost like if you could combine them, you'd get it. But I'm interested in how you getting
I think the most similar that we've tried out is Curtis Jones, and I don't think a lot of people are going to like that answer. But Jones does have that ability where he will try and beat a man or hold on to the ball slightly too long, which I think is what Zubimendi does really, really well. And I'm not saying here that Jones can't get to Zubimendi's level, but I think Zubimendi or Jones would be from what we've seen in these early days, a very, very light version of what Zubimendi is. I think he is very similar to him. I just don't think we're going to get to see Jones fulfil that potential in that role, because I think Zubimendi's going to come in and do it so well that Jones doesn't get the opportunity to do it. So I thought that was an interesting one anyway. In terms of him as the sort of defender and stuff, I found this really great article from The Analyst, a website that both you and I really enjoy. Now, this is from 2021, Josh. Minimum 1,900 minutes played, central and defensive midfielders in La Liga. And you just see here the dual success rate and the aerial dual success rate, and just see where Zubimendi is as well. Now, I wouldn't suggest, Josh, that Zubimendi is a destroyer type of midfielder, and these are very old statistics as well, so I will caveat that. But when you've watched him over the last week, what type of defensive midfielder are you seeing?
Defensively, I think he puts a foot in more than you'd think, and he does put himself about. He does get himself in situations where, you know, there's a bit of a scrap for the ball. He seems to be more efficient than a lot of Liverpool players when it comes to winning those duels. That could just be because he's not engaging in as many of them. Some of the numbers I see, and I don't know if they were entirely accurate, I usually be a little bit careful with defensive numbers, but what I see, and I think last season McAllister was averaging about double the number of duels Zubimendi was. So in that sense, Zubimendi's probably going to show up as more efficient because he's just engaging in less. But nevertheless, it's a good thing that he wins more of his duels than he loses them. I think aerially, I've been a bit surprised.
Yeah, for a guy who's 5'11", he seems to win a huge percentage of aerial duels.
Yeah,
is that about positioning? Reading of the game?
Yeah, potentially, but also just application as well. There's got to be an element of application in there. And my initial first thought was, well, La Liga, they keep the ball on the floor. It's not particularly physical. But then the numbers, I think, I'm right in saying, are even better in the Champions League. So it's not just La Liga is not particularly physical. It's a quality he seems to have, which is good for any six, because a lot of opposition sides, probably less so nowadays, but sometimes the way in which they escape Liverpool's high press is by hitting long. So it's nice that he has that to his game. But overall, defensively, I think efficient is probably the way I'd use to describe him.
Yeah, I like it. I like the fact that he's he seems to be one of those guys that he's not afraid to put a foot in, and he's not afraid to vacate his space to put a foot in as well, by the way. He's not afraid to take that sort of risk to go and track a great player into the middle of the park and leave a little bit of space behind him because he thinks he can win the ball. So that's a good thing in my eyes as well. If we move on to some of the games that he's played in recent years, then he's played in 31, 36, 36 and 31 games in La Liga over the last few seasons. In terms of his injury history, you can see on my screen here, he did have a little hamstring injury last season, missed 5 games, as well as a hip injury, missed 2. But generally speaking, as a 25-year-old, he's not had a big injury there. So that bodes well for us as well, because I think one of the things that we did under Jurgen Klopp was we bought quite a lot of players who were injury prone. Yeah,
I mean, that can't be stressed enough, that the availability of a player is so important. And he's proved it quite clearly, over the past couple of seasons, purely in terms of stats in La Liga. He's starting 29, 35, 26, and when he was a 21-year-old, he started 17. But in the past 3 seasons, he started a minimum of 26 La Liga games, so that suggests really good availability. And if you're building a new team, Richard Hughes is building a bit of a new squad now, and this is potentially going to be his first sign. It bodes well that he's getting in a player who's so available. I would definitely take a hit on quality to get in a player who's always available to play on the pitch.
Thiago's a perfect example, isn't it? We got probably one of the best midfielders, but didn't get to use him.
Yeah, we always compared him to Wijnaldum, didn't we? Because he was kind of Wijnaldum's replacement a little bit. Much better player, in my opinion, but just available, not even half as much. Wijnaldum never missed a game, mate. So I think if you ask any Liverpool fan now, Thiago, for me, arguably makes Liverpool's best 11 of players I've seen. in terms of on his day. But Wijnaldum, if you could pick a player, you know, to build a team around, most supporters would probably pick Wijnaldum because he was always available.
Absolutely.
So Zubimendi offers that.
He's also got that Champions League experience. He played 8 games in the Champions League last season. He's got 18 Europa League games under his belt, 10 caps for Spain at all different levels. He was playing for Spain as well, which I think is quite interesting. If I just go over...
he was brilliant in the Champions League, by the way.
In the Champions League, yeah, absolutely.
He was very good.
And in the second half of the Euros final, obviously everybody will have seen that as well. Obviously Rodri comes out, he comes in, and Spain arguably get better in the second half. You can see there he's played 144 times in La Liga, scored 7 goals and 5 assists. He's played for Spain, as I said, 10 times, under 23, under 21, under 19, under 17 and in the Olympic side as well. So this is a guy who has a lot of experience for a 25-year-old, and we know that that's something that Liverpool look at. Yeah,
well, it's nice to sign players who, you know, if you the larger the sample, the more certain you can be. This is a signing, to be honest, that Liverpool can be really, really sure about, because there's a lot of minutes behind them, and on top of that, you know exactly what you're going to pay because he's got a release clause. So Liverpool can kind of assess that budget-wise. You know, is this player worth this amount in terms of points? And they can do it in advance of even getting to the negotiation table because of the release clause. So if Liverpool are going for him at this price and they're going to pay the full release clause up front or whatever, it's because they fully know he'll be worth that on the pitch in terms of points and in terms of goal difference and stuff like that. And some players, you have to just make a bit more of an educated guess with that sort of thing because they haven't got enough minutes or you don't know how much the club's going to charge for them or whatever. So it's one that I want to happen mainly because it feels like Liverpool are sure about him. You know, and that's a good feel when you're going into the transfer market.
It absolutely is, and I've got a stat today, and a lot of this stuff that you'll have seen so far over the course of the show, obviously by the opinion, is stuff that everybody will have seen. I wrote this agenda on Wednesday afternoon before a lot of this stuff was freely available on Twitter and stuff like that, but obviously people do the same as what we do and that search this stuff out. One thing I haven't seen is a stat that I've pulled up here, and this is the last 2 seasons in La Liga, midfielders, minimum of 590s, and I've ranked this on tackles and interceptions per 90, aerial duels 1 per 90, and progressive passes per 90. And because it's 2 seasons, you can see that Zubimendi comes up twice. He's in 1st and 3rd place there based off the minutes that he's managed to play in each of those seasons. This was as a 23-year-old. This season was as a 24-year-old. And just some of the names that he is being linked to. Federico Valverde, Frankie de Jong, Mikel Merino, obviously just about to get to Arsenal as well. Toni Kroos has a couple of seasons there. Tchouaméni, Camavinga, Tchouaméni again, and then Nicolas Gonzalez, Carvalho and Crespo. And if I just change this now so that it's actually just the last season, you'll get an idea of the company I think that he is keeping in terms of these statistics, and you do already. You get a real flavour for it. Now we've broached this down, or we've filtered this down, I should say, to Valverde, Zubimendi, Merino, Kroos, Tchouaméni, William Carvalho, and based off the minutes, this Crespo lad I would probably just get him out on there because of the 527 minutes. Now, if I change this criteria again, and you can watch me do that if you want to, it's not a problem. And I'm going to put an age filter on this. So I'm going to put it into maximum age of 30. We'll get the results for that, and we'll just see who is left. Now, Valverde, Zubimendi, Merino, Tchouaméni.
Not bad company, is it?
It's not bad company, but if you were to look at his stats on FBref, it doesn't look fantastic, does it? But when you drill down into 3 things that are actually quite important, you see all of a sudden where he shows up. I mean, 2 Real Madrid players and a player that's about to go to Arsenal, one of the best ranked clubs in England, with a very good side at the moment. Let's look at his stats right now on FBref. Nothing really to shout home about there, apart from the aerial duels one.
No, it's interesting actually. He's the kind of player, looking at his numbers, who doesn't especially shine in anything major, but while also being good in every department, if you see what I mean. There's no major weakness there. There's nothing majorly to worry about. But it's kind of like 7 out of 10 in every department, really. But that's, again, that goes back to it. That's a 6. You know, a 6 is typically like that. A 6 is just kind of
under the radar.
Yeah, just sensible and clever and that, and keeps things ticking over and does what the team needs from. And you've got to bear in mind as well, the way in which Sociedad play is they do dominate the ball, but it is really safe, and it's quite defensive really. I think last season for progressive passes, for example, I think they finished about 10th in La Liga for that. So given that, you know, there's a ceiling that Zubimendi can hit with Sociedad, whereas if he comes to Liverpool, I think all of those numbers will take a jump naturally. And if we look at those numbers in 12 months, after 12 months at Anfield, there'll be a lot more green in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we've got a graphic that you made. You posted this on your Twitter a few days ago when we didn't know the name of the potential number 6, Josh. And you know, you've compared progressive passes per 90 with pass completion percentage. Europe's top 7 leagues, no Premier League, age 26 and under, minimum 1,350 minutes. What are you seeing here?
Yeah, so this is when it was a mystery player, so we didn't know who it was going to be. So I think, I've said this a few times now, when it comes to Liverpool's number 6 now, I think we want a player who is never going to give the ball away and is going to move it forward when the opportunity arises, just based on what I've seen from Slot in pre-season. So those are the midfield. I was pretty certain when I put that together.
One of them was there.
One of the mystery 6s was there. And as you can see, Zubimendi is, what I will say as well, by the way, it looks like he's, you know, near the worst end of the graph, if you want. But look at the bottom axis and progressive passes there. I'm starting the filter up for progressive passes per 90. I could have done 0. If I'd
be right in the top end of it.
Yeah, if I'd have done 0, he'd have been further towards where you'd want to see him, and you'd see all the rest who just weren't good enough to make the grade, basically. They're the lads who keep the ball and move it forward to a high level. Some other comparable ones in there. I mean, what is interesting actually, Orkun Kochku, Joey Veerman, Ramiz Zerouki and Mats Weifer all have played under Slot. So he seems to want that progressive element, you know, accelerate the game when the opportunity's there to do so. And Zubimendi has the skill set to do that. So I felt that was interesting because, you know, as soon as he emerged as the man, I went back to the graphic and had a look where he was showing up. And again, going back to Sociedad's playing style, he will climb higher than where he is on that once he starts playing for a bigger team, basically, if he starts playing for a bigger team.
This is obviously a very important signing for Richard Hughes, Liverpool's new sporting director. I think he's set his stall out, and we mentioned this on the Tuesday's deep dive, about he doesn't want to be rinsed by teams. He looks like he's explored the non-release clause way of doing business with Sociedad, but they're so keen to keep him that this could be the only route that he has to take. Have you been impressed with the way that Richard Hughes has sort of handled this?
It's difficult to say. I mean, I think I've been one of the few in favour of Liverpool being patient this summer, because we do have a lot of options, quite a big squad at the moment. You need to trim it down, and if you're going to start making additions as a new sporting director, you want every addition to bring the team up a level, and that's not easy, especially considering the current level of Liverpool's squad. So I think just being patient around that, letting Slot have a proper assessment of the squad in pre-season in America, and then making the moves, I think has been the right thing. So I've been in favour of that. Going for a release clause, I think, makes sense as well, always really. I like the player in terms of what we've identified, and I think he's the right fit and fits the need of it and all that stuff. But I think if we don't land him, he's going to receive criticism. Yeah. Because it looks like his first attempt has fell short, and people think as well that he's released all the news that, like, you know, we're going for this player, we're going to get him with confidence, and then we end up not getting him. I actually don't think Liverpool have wanted to release this news. I think they've kind of been forced the hand a little bit by Ornstein almost, who I think kind of got the information from elsewhere. But yeah, I think it's one of them where if the player stays put, it will be for reasons beyond what Liverpool could offer. It will be one of them where no one could convince him to go. It's like, again, going back to Gerrard with Chelsea. You know, it's no one's getting him out. So, but I think it's ambitious to even try. And fans are always calling for ambition and that. It's an ambitious move. No one's been able to get him out of there as of yet. That goes for Arsenal, Bayern Munich, Barcelona linked with him every summer. So if Liverpool get him, it should be firm, you know, pats on the back and that. But if Liverpool don't get him, I don't think there's a lot we could do.
In summary then for you, Josh, does the signing of Martín Zubimendi move the needle significantly for what we can achieve this season?
Yeah, I think it does. I think
a little wry smile on your face there.
Because I think above everything else, I think it accelerates Liverpool's ability to compete this season, like now.
Less teething problems in keeping the ball at the back.
Yeah, I think from the off, we'll have more of a standing to actually maybe go for the league. Whereas without someone like a Zubimendi, just watching some players learn on the job in this deeper midfield too that we've been doing, I just think we might concede a few cheap goals in the first couple of months. And I think that's less likely if you've got a first phase master in there like Zubimendi, who just has been doing it for years and will just show everyone else how you do it, basically.
Okay.
What about you?
Interesting. Yeah, I think it'd be a fantastic signing for Liverpool. I really do. As I say, I do have some slight concerns, which I mentioned earlier on, about, you know, whether he'd settle and stuff like that. But I do feel that it's outweighed by the fact that if he's thought about it properly and he decides that he's coming to Liverpool, then that does allay my fears. But I thought it was worth mentioning earlier on and stuff.
Here's one for you. I'll give you a second to think about this. But do you think that he is a floor-raising sign?
As in everybody else improves?
As in, like, he improves Liverpool's worst level, if you see what I mean? Or is he a ceiling raiser, as in he improves our highest level? Because I think it's the floor, personally.
Okay.
I think adding him kind of ensures that Liverpool's worst level is still just pretty solid, you know what I mean? Whereas the ceiling raiser is usually like a bit of stardust, isn't it? And I think he's going to be a player who dips under the radar, but very well.
I think it could be both, to be honest. And one of the reasons why, and we've not really touched on this, is what it does for the rest of the midfield. I think if you've got an inability to play out from the back, naturally these players start to come back a little bit more to try and find the ball.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if you've got that ability, all of a sudden you've got lads drawing in the press, the ball goes to Harvey Elliott. This man here, or Dom Szoboszlai, could have a real raise of the game. And if their game's raised, the ceiling's raised.
It's a good point. I think Jones said recently, actually, he was speaking about Harvey Elliott getting the assists, and he got asked, you know, you're not getting any assists because you're playing in deeper areas, is that a problem type thing? And Jones said, it's our job to get the ball to Harvey up here. So if Harvey Elliott at times is doing that to help out, something is going wrong. Not necessarily wrong. I mean, sometimes you might just need to do it to outnumber the opposition. But in theory, Harvey Elliott should be up here, or whoever it is, and receiving the ball from these lads. And if you add Zubimendi to the mix here, that's just more likely to happen, I think, without encountering difficulties, as you say. So, yeah, hopefully it happens.
Absolutely. So there you go. Everything you need to know about Martín Zubimendi. I've been Chris Pajak. That's been Josh Williams. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. And we'll see you. We're both away next week, aren't we? So we'll see you in a couple of weeks on the deep dive, I suppose. So thanks very much for the support as always, and we'll see you next time.